Pandemonium Commentary from the CCRU Writings. 1. Pneumogram Alts Chime. To those familiar with the Western magical tradition, it is likely that the pneumogram will initially invoke the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Both are constructed as decimal diagrams, involving webs of connectivity between 10 basic zones, mysteriously twisted into a cryptic ultra cycle that links upper and lower regions. Both treat names as numbers, and numerize by digital reduction and accumulation. Both include passages across abysmal waters and through infernal regions. Both map zones onto spinal levels. Despite these manifold linkages, there are compelling reasons to consider the Tree of Life a scrambled variant of the pneumogram, rather than a parallel system. During its long passage through Atlantean and post-Atlantean Hermetic traditions, the systematic distortions of the pneumogram introduced to confuse the uninitiated gradually hardened into erroneous doctrines and a dogmatic image of the tree. Most evidently, a vulgar distribution of the numbers in their exoteric counting order was substituted redundantly for the now esoteric pneumogrammatical distribution, which proceeds in accordance with immanent criteria, the web emerging Kabbalistically from the zoned numbers themselves. More devastatingly, the original consistency of numeracy and language seems to have been fractured at an early stage, introducing a division between the number of the Sephiroth, 10, and of the Hebrew alphabet, 22. The result was a break between the nodes of the tree and the interconnecting paths, ruining all prospect of decipherment. The Sephiroth, segmented over against their connections, became static and structural, whilst the paths lose any rigorous principle of allocation. A strictly analogous outcome is evident in the segmentation of the Tarot into major and minor arcana. Increasingly desperate, arbitrary, and mystifying attempts to reunite the numbers and their linkages seems to have bedeviled all succeeding occult traditions. 2. Pneumogram and Eching. There is considerable evidence, both imminent and historical, that the Chinese Eching and the Ma pneumogram share a hypercultural matrix. Both are associated with intricate zygonomies, or double numbering systems, and process abstract problematics involving subdivisions of decimal arrays, as suggested by the 10 wings of traditional Eching commentary. Digital reduction of binary powers stabilizes in a 6-step cycle, with the values 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. These steps correspond to the lines of the hexagram and to the time circuit zones of the pneumogram, producing a bidecimal 6th cycle, which is also generated in reverse by quintuplicative numbering. In both cases, a supplementary rule of pairing is followed, according to a Zygonovic criterion: 9 twinning of reduced values, 8 to 1, 7 to 2, 5 to 4, mapping the hexagram line pairs. The pneumogram time circuit, or Eching hexagram, implicitly associates 0 with a set of excluded triadic values. It is intriguing in this respect that numerous indications point to an early struggle between triadic and binary numbering practices in ancient Chinese culture, suggesting that the binary domination of decimal numeracy systematically produces a triadic residue consistent with nullity. The hexagram itself exhibits obvious tension in this respect, since it reinserts a triadic hyperfactor into the reduced bino-digital set, compounded by its summation to 27, or the third power of 3. An ancient bino-triadic parallel to the I Ching, called the Tai Xuan Qing, or Book of the Great Dark, consisted of 81 tetragrams, reversing the relation of foregrounded and implicit numerical values. The division of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching into 81 sections suggests that this numerical conflict was an animating factor in the early history of Taoism. 3. Ethnography of the Ma. Ma culture cannot be decoded without the key provided by the Lemurian time maze. The influence of hyper-triadic criterion of time is evident in the relics of Ma kinship organization, calendrics, and associated rituals. Prior to the calamity of 1883, the Ma consisted of true tribes, tripartite macrosocial divisions. They are distributed in a basic tridentity, interlocking large-scale groupings into Tak, Mu, and Dib Ma, supported by a triangular patrilocal marriage cycle. Each marriage identified a woman with a pneumogram current, or time passage. Tak Ma women marrying into the Mu Ma ditto Dib Ma ditto Tak Ma. The common calendar of all three tribes was based upon a zygotriadic system, using 6 digits to divide a double year period of 729 days into fractional powers of 3. The Mu Ma still employs such a calendar today. The current Mu Ma calendar is adjusted by regular intercalations of 3 additional days every second cycle, or 4 years. The early practice of intercalations is not easily recoverable. In the rituals of the Ma, the time circuit is concretized as a hydrocycle, a division and recombination of the waters. The 3 stages of this recurrent transmutation are 1. The undivided waters, oceanic, 2. Cloud building, evaporation, and 3. Downpour, precipitation, river flow. These are associated with the great sea beast, Murmur, the lurker of steaming swamps, a dub, and that which hunts amongst the raging storms, Katak. The cycle is closed by a return to the abysmal waters, intrinsically linking the order of time and its recurrence to an ultimate cataclysm, prior to any opposition of cyclic and apocalyptic time. It is in this context that the transcultural deluge mythos can be restored to its aboriginal sense, which also corresponds to the Hindu Trimurti, with its 3 stages of creation, preservation, and destruction.